Yes, I'm Batman.
I'm Batman.
I'm Batman, Alfred.
I'm Batman.
I am Batman!
I'm Batman. I'm Batman.
Greetings, Bat Family. Welcome back to Holy BatCast, brought to you by Real Fans for Real Movies. Please visit our website, holybatcast.com. It's where you're going to find episodes of this show, links, merchandise, videos, whatever you need. So go to holybatcast.com. Check all that out. You can also find us all over social media on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and YouTube. Just search for Holy BatCast, and you will find us, because we're the only one. You can also find us on Patreon. So if you are a fan of the show, would like to help support the show, you can go to patreon.com/holybatcast. Please and thank you to everybody who has done that or who is considering doing that. We couldn't do it without you. We are also part of the Real Fans Podcast Network. So if you can't get enough of all this geeky talk and you want to check out some other shows, we've also got Real Fans for Real Movies, or RF4RM, where we look at movies past and present. There's Disorder, every Disney film, where we're looking at every Disney animated feature in order. And then the newest member, Please Rewind, the RF4RM Retro Show, where Jamie, Guy, and Tim are looking at some older movies as they feel like it. So you can check all those shows out at rf4rm.com, or you can just search for them by name wherever you get your podcasts. They're all coming from the same place. And as always, I'm your host, Andy DiGenova. And if you'd like to follow me when I'm not talking about Batman, you can follow me on Twitter or on Instagram just by looking for my name, Andy DiGenova. Now, this episode, we will be celebrating the 20th anniversary of Batman and Mr. Freeze SubZero. And it's a good time, too, because it was just released on Blu-ray. And joining me to talk about that film, first of all, I've got my partner in crime, the polar bear to my Mr. Freeze, Mr. Jamie Truly. Hey, Jamie.
Gray hair, check. Very large, check. Very grumpy, growly, check. I think you're onto something here.
But occasionally cuddly?
Maybe, I guess.
You can pretend, but we all know that there's a soft, gooey center in the middle of that hard shell.
Bite me.
Well, good to have you back, Jamie. Also, we were really excited we were going to have Brendan join us, but unfortunately, he's currently in a detox facility for overdosing on Fosters, which, as we know, is Australian for beer. Wait a minute, do I hear a voice? Do I hear a voice on this? I think that they just released him in time to join us on the episode. So he survived the wallaby invasion. He's detoxed for now. It's Brendan Lowe. Hey, Brendan.
Hello, all. Look, I must say, because as we record this, it's Easter Sunday morning, my time, which is kind of fitting when you think about it, because 2 weeks ago you guys killed me off. So, on the third Sunday, I have risen. I am back.
Well done.
I'm back, and I'm ready to talk some Batman, which is going to be fun, because I was just saying to you guys before, I haven't podcasted at all for almost 2 months now, so I'm very keen to do this.
Well, it is good to have you back. I'm glad that you have somehow survived all these trials and tribulations down there.
I've enjoyed listening to the last 2 episodes. It's been interesting, to say the least.
Survived, what was it, Brendan's Australian crikey nightmare?
Oh, something like that.
Something like that. It's the name of your biography. You tell me.
Last week's episode, I played a little bit of that. Actually, I was just listening to the end of it. I'd heard the start of it, and I was catching up on the last bit of the show at home. And Jess was in the kitchen when it was playing, and you said something or other. You threw me under the bus for something. And Jess looks at me and she's like, God, he's such a shit. I was just like, yeah, he kind of is.
With friends like these.
Yeah, exactly.
Obviously, she's never listened to a podcast with Steve on it. Holy crap, if she can't handle Andy.
Yeah. Well, she's been on a podcast with Steve.
That's what I'm saying. How is Andy the point where she can't cross and she can be in a room with Steve? That's
It's
great.
probably because she doesn't know me. You know, she knows Steve, but she doesn't really know me. So all she's got to go on is when I gently rib Brendan
Wallaby jokes.
But,
That's all she's got.
She loves it too, so it's all good.
It's nothing but love.
I know. We know that. Don't you worry.
Okay, good. Well, anyway, it is good to have you back. It's good for the three of us to be back together again.
Hey, get the band back together. Richard will be happy.
Yeah. Together again. Gee, it's good to be together again. Anyway, it is Easter Sunday for you. It is Easter Eve for Jamie and myself. So the Easter Bunny has finished his work in Australia and is currently traveling in his underground rabbit tunnel over to our side of the world so he can start hiding eggs for us.
Yes.
That's what he's doing. So anyway, happy Easter to everybody out there. And we wanted to talk about this animated film. So we were already thinking ahead to doing this because the 20th anniversary of it was coming up. Fortunately, Warner Brothers heard us and was like, hey, the 20th anniversary is coming up. Do you know what we should do? Release it on Blu-ray. So everything came together very nicely. The Blu-ray was released last week. And so we're missing the 20th anniversary just by about 2 weeks, which isn't so bad. That's pretty impressive. So we all picked up the Blu-ray, we checked it out, and we're going to look back 20 years at Batman and Mr. Freeze SubZero. Now, Batman and Mr. Freeze SubZero was released March 17th of 1998. So again, as of this recording, we're just about 2 weeks off, which is pretty darn good. I'll take it. The Blu-ray was released this week. Hopefully you guys picked it up. We're planning on picking it up. Maybe the Easter Bunny's bringing it to you in a basket. I don't know. We're going to look back and see how this movie looks 20 years after the fact. We'll start just by sharing... when was the first time we saw it? Do we have any memories of this movie? Brendan, since you are our guest, why don't you get us started? Any memories of Batman and Mr. Freeze SubZero?
Well, the first time I knew this movie was or even heard of it was actually there was an ad for it in the comic adaptation of Batman and Robin. So that was the first time I heard of it, and I was interested in seeing it, obviously. That's when I was 13. And then I sort of forgot about it, and because it didn't come out here on video until 1999. So one Friday, I came home from school, and Mum said she was out and saw this and grabbed it for me, and it was the VHS copy of SubZero. So I saw it for the first time in 1999, and I really enjoyed it. It's just a really good, fun Batman movie. It's the best Batman movie starring Mr. Freeze, that's for sure. Not that the competition's very, very strong, but it's a better Batman and Robin movie than Batman and Robin. And it's a shame that they sort of had to distance themselves from it. Like, I feel that this could have been released theatrically. Like, it would have been a good, quasi sequel to Mask of the Phantasm. Mm-hmm. It sort of, Mask of the Phantasm feels to me like a Batman movie, whereas this one sort of, to me, skirts the line between being a movie but also just a really long episode of the animated series. Some of the things, I know we'll get into it, but some of the things they do with the animation and stuff does make it feel a bit more theatrical and a little bit, what's what I'm looking for, kind of more important than just like a two-parter episode or something. But there's something about it that sort of has that movie theatrical feel to it. Mm-hmm. And I really enjoyed it. It's one that I bust out at least once, sometimes twice a year. So even though I had every intention of watching it before recording, as a bit of a refresher, had a little medical emergency in the family yesterday, so that sort of got thrown out the window. But I'm familiar enough with the movie without having watched it in about a year to be able to contribute to the conversation today.
Well, that's good. Thank goodness for that. And we're glad that things seem like they're okay with the family. Did the Blu-ray come out in Australia yet?
No.
Oh.
Do they even have Blu-ray in Australia yet?
They do. And, Master of the Phantasm never came out over here.
Oh.
Although wasn't it only through Warner Brothers
Archive?
Yeah, which
Yeah.
this one is too.
No,
Yeah, see,
is it? Is this one only online?
I mean, you can get it through Amazon and stuff, but no stores are carrying it or any place that I've seen.
Okay, interesting. I didn't know. Because it doesn't have the Warner Brothers Archive label on it anywhere.
I had to go on Amazon to get mine, and I had to pay dearly for it.
I mean, I got mine on
think
Amazon, but I only get
just
things
shy
on
of
Amazon.
$23, I think, is what I had to pay for it through Amazon. So,
See, I could probably order them online if I desperately wanted to, but I think I'll just hold off for now.
All right, just wait for it.
It'll come out in another 10 years.
Yeah, exactly. Just like the VHS came out a year later, this will come out
Yep.
a year from now. It just takes a lot longer for a kangaroo to carry it in its pouch all the way across the outback to get it to you.
Well, I don't know if you remember me telling you guys, but it was only late 2016 that we got all the Batman animated series and all the Justice League animated series finally released on DVD.
I do remember that.
Prior to that, it was only season 1 of Batman the Animated Series. And that's, 15 years after they wrapped up? So, good times.
That's crazy. Oh, man. All right. Jamie, what about you? Any background with this film?
I was aware of the movie's existence, more or less because the $5 DVD rack at Target always seemed to have a copy of it sitting there. And I'd never bought it. I'd never watched it. I just knew it was there. I didn't really know anything about it. And then a year or two ago, you and somebody else were talking about it, and I was like, I've never seen this. And you guys were like, what? You've never seen this? And, one of those treatments. And I wound up watching it for the first time then. So it was just a year or two ago that I saw this for the first time.
So when you did pick it up a year or two ago, did you just buy the DVD?
I think I just rented it on Amazon for $3 or something.
Oh, okay. Got
Because
it.
I don't think I have a copy of it anywhere. I don't think I bought it. So.
Well, you do now. It's a good thing you waited a year.
Well, yeah. Kept me from double dipping on that.
Yeah. See, you saved yourself a whole $5.
Patience.
Don't spend it all in one place.
Right.
Awesome. So this is one where I remember the trailer very vividly because I swear I saw this trailer for a year before I ever got to see the movie. I used to own the VHS tapes of Batman the Animated Series, and each tape was like 2 episodes. But I owned them all because at that time I thought that was all I'd ever be able to own of Batman the Animated Series, and so I figured that was better than nothing. But each one had like a character face on it, so there was a Batman one, a Robin one, a Two-Face one, a Joker, etc., etc. But I swear that the trailer must have been on some of those tapes because I just remember seeing it a lot. And I remember it was coming out, I was really looking forward to it, and then I felt like it's taking forever to come out. Why did this movie never come out? And then it was released in the spring of 1998. And now, looking back, we know that it was supposed to be released the summer of 97. And they pushed it back. Allegedly, the story now is they pushed it back because Batman and Robin was so negatively received that they didn't want. The initial idea was they were going to piggyback off the success of Batman and Robin, but then Batman and Robin became a liability, and so they were like, let's just hold on to this one and release it in a little while. And so it was released in the spring instead, but because of that delay, the extra, I guess whatever would have been 8 months maybe, it just felt like I was waiting for this movie for a really long time. And then I finally did buy the VHS. It was a VHS that I watched relatively often. I owned the DVD. I'm not sure how often I've revisited the DVD, but I remember having to buy it just because I wanted to have it in the collection. And then I was excited to hear about the Blu-ray release, and revisiting the Blu-ray for this episode, I don't think I've watched this movie in 10 years. Like, it's been a long time that I've actually watched this movie. So it was really cool being able to revisit it. And it all came back to me, but it had just been a while. I couldn't do what Brendan is doing, which is go in and going, oh yeah, I already know it. I had to do my homework for this one. But the Blu-ray is out, and I mean, Brendan can't tell me, but Jamie, agree or disagree, I think they did a great job on it, honestly. We talked about the Mask of the Phantasm Blu-ray, was it last year? Yep. And we talked about how that one, the remaster was like 75% great and maybe 25% not great, and then there were no extras. It was just the movie. And on this one, SubZero, the picture quality looks amazing to me. And it actually comes with a pretty good amount of extras, which I was really excited about because this is the less popular of the Batman the Animated Series animated movies compared to Mask of the Phantasm, but the Blu-ray is a little more fleshed out. It's just a better quality Blu-ray, which I was like, how weird. But that's just the way it is. So you get the movie, of course, in HD, and like I said, I think the picture looks great. Jamie, how do you feel about that?
I think it looks fantastic. Yes.
Yeah, the picture looks amazing. Looks as good as you could possibly want it to look.
Other than not being in widescreen, of course, but that's whatever.
That was just the nature of
it is what it is.
The way it was in 1998. But what's funny is that Mask of the Phantasm is actually better in full screen because you get more of the animation. Because for the widescreen version, they actually just cropped it. So you're actually getting less picture in the widescreen, which is so bizarre. But yeah, this one was always meant to go to video. I think the picture looks great. And I think part of the reason is that Mask of the Phantasm was 1993. This was 1998. That's 5 years. 5 years, though, in technology is a huge leap. So I do have a hunch that there was a digital master for this film from 1998, and there probably wasn't one for Mask of the Phantasm from 1993. So it was probably much easier to clean up and get an HD version of this one if they had a digital master to work from instead of a dusty old print that they had to scan in and clean up by hand.
That makes sense.
That's my guess.
And also that might be why, and I didn't think it was overwhelming with the special. I mean, what do you get, like 3 Mr. Freeze episodes of Batman the Animated Series, a trailer and something else?
You get 4. So yeah, you get the Mr. Freeze saga, as they're calling it, which is 4 episodes. So 2 from Batman the Animated Series, 1 from the new Batman Adventures, and then the Batman Beyond. So I think that's amazing. Yeah. I love that you get the entire Mr. Freeze story on one disc.
That's cool.
It's great. I love it. Because these are some of my favorite episodes. Because as you guys know, I love me some Mr. Freeze. Then you get a Art of Batman montage, which is like 2 minutes. It's not super meaningful. You get a How to Draw Batman, which I did not watch. Maybe when I'm really bored. And then you do get the trailer. So no, it's not like overwhelmingly packed, but compared to Mask of the Phantasm, which just had the trailer, I was pleasantly surprised, especially to get all the Mr. Freeze episodes in one place.
Mm-hmm. No, and that's probably, back to your point about the digital master existing for this one, would make sense that they didn't have to spend as much of their budget to, clean it up, as it were. So they got to throw some extra stuff onto the disc because of that.
Right. I think so. And they make it very clear, like when you go in and you look at the TV episodes, it just says in parentheses standard definition. So they just burned them onto the Blu-ray. They didn't do any remastering. But I played part of Heart of Ice just to look at it, and it still looks good. It looks really good. So even if they didn't remaster it, it looks really great from this Blu-ray. So I want to actually watch it all in order. And as I was looking at the extras, I was like, okay, where does SubZero fit into this timeline? Because of course I know Heart of Ice really well, but the other ones are all a little fuzzy. It's been a while since I've seen all the other ones, and so I couldn't remember where SubZero should fit in. But on the back of the Blu-ray, it actually says, here's where Mr. Freeze SubZero takes place. And it's between the 2 animated series episodes and right before the new Batman Adventures episode.
Oh, that's cool.
So you can literally just watch all of them in order, and they made it so easy and hassle-free, and I thank them for that.
That's very considerate of them.
I know, because I literally was going to look it up and be like, okay, where the hell does this fit in chronologically? But they did it for me.
You said that's on the back of the case?
Yeah, it's on the back of the case under the special features.
I didn't even really read the back of the case. I just took it out of the envelope and cut the seal and put it in.
Yeah. So now you know. But so I will say, before we get into the movie itself, though, Blu-ray, absolutely worth your purchase. I think. If you're a Batman fan, if you're a big Mr. Freeze fan like I am, it's definitely worth the $20. The movie itself looks great, and then to get those 4 episodes for me was like a really nice surprise.
I'm just going to go ahead and jump to this now because I found this so obscure. I was watching the credits at the end because I was trying to pick up if there was like some voices that I might have missed somewhere. Like sometimes, somebody pops, like Mary Lou Henner was the voice of a character in there somewhere. Just random stuff like that. The weird thing to me is everything about this movie seemed crisp, clean, really new. It didn't seem dated or aged at all. But then it got to the closing credits and it was like blurry and the motion was weird. Did you experience that with yours at all?
Yeah. The closing credits did look a little fuzzier than the rest of the movie. I agree with that.
I mean, that's obviously no strike against owning this on Blu-ray or anything. I thought that was weird somehow.
Right. Like, why wouldn't that look just as crisp as everything else?
Yeah. Maybe just the way it was formatted or something. Not a big deal. I just wondered if it was just me that had that.
No, I think you're right. But anyway, so pick up the Blu-ray, celebrate 20 years of Batman and Mr. Freeze Sub-Zero, but I will say also, I remember when it came out in 1998, I remember talking with friends about it, and almost everyone said a version of what Brendan said when we kicked off, which is, see, this is what Batman and Robin could have been. This is what Batman and Robin should have been. Like, you can make a good Mr. Freeze movie. What's going on, guys? I distinctly remember that when this finally did come out. Anyway, just overall thoughts on the movie after it's been 20 years. Brendan.
I dig it. Like, I really, really enjoy this movie. There's a reason why I watch it at least once, maybe twice a year, and have for quite a long time now. It's just really good. It's everything that you love about Batman the Animated Series, and I mean, what's not to love about that? It's a great Mr. Freeze story, and Mr. Freeze, unlike you, Andy, he's not one of my favorite villains. Like, I like him fine, but he's not one of my favorites. But this is one. I mean, maybe over the years, I might have even watched this more than Mask of the Phantasm. I don't know. I really.
Let's not say things we can't take back now, Brett.
I'm not.
He didn't say it was better. He just said that he watched it more.
Yeah, it's definitely not a better movie, but it's just one that I think. I honestly think I may have rewatched it more, because it's just always a fun watch, and I do like that it's got Robin and Batgirl in it too, because they're two of my favorite characters from the animated series. That's why, for me, it's got the rewatchability that it does. So, yeah, 20 years on, I still love it.
Nice. And Jamie, being relatively new to this party, this cool party.
Somebody was going to do it eventually. It just had to be him.
Andy, just chill.
I'm not getting involved in this.
I mean,
I refuse to be ruined for the next 90 minutes, guys.
My name is Andy. Learn it well, because it's the chilling sound of your doom. Anyway, Jamie.
This movie and me, we get along just fine. I really like how Batgirl-centric this movie is. I'm completely ignoring I love how Batgirl-centric it is. I think I'll just get right to it and come out and say it. I really like Heart of Ice. I thought it was really well done, but for some reason, on an emotional spectrum, Mr. Freeze hits me a little bit harder in this than he did in Heart of Ice.
Actually, I'll second that. I like this better than Heart of Ice.
I can almost relate to him more in this than I could in Heart of Ice, and it seems weird to say it. And it's not that he wasn't sympathetic in Heart of Ice. It's just there are strong character moments in here. Even the subtle ones are really strong with him that I just really adored, and it made me appreciate him as a character even more having watched it.
Well, I think what it does is it beautifully builds on Heart of Ice and takes you to the next logical step with much greater stakes to understand where he's coming from. So I totally hear what you're saying because of what goes down in this movie, things get real, and he is then pushed to do things that he didn't necessarily want to do, but he has to or feels that he has to. And you're right, like, because there is a more immediate risk to Nora than there was in Heart of Ice, the stakes are higher. And so I think it makes sense that you would find him even more sympathetic here.
Sure. I really like the character moments that are shared between Dick and Barbara. I think those are really good. There's like one really sweet moment that we'll get into when we get into the discussion. The doctor he's not a great character, but he's interesting enough that he contributes his part to the movie well enough that it kind of takes some of the pressure off of Freeze being a complete peckerhead through the whole thing, because you have this guy carrying some of that weight too. You know what I'm saying? It's like it allows you to be more sympathetic to Mr. Freeze because this guy is shouldering some of the weight of being the more unlikable portion of the pairing of the villains. Like all of his stuff is completely self-motivated, in other words, versus Freeze has got a little bit more of a noble intention behind what he's doing. So I kind of like, I don't like him as a character, but I like his inclusion because of that. There's just great stuff. The polar bears. I mean, how am I not going to love polar bears? Come on.
Yeah.
I've been a huge fan of polar bears ever since I saw Roadhouse. What? Nobody? All right, fine.
I'm sorry. I don't know it well enough.
I'll go on my own with that. That's fine. There's somebody.
Jeff Connell likes your comment.
Connell, polar bear fell on me.
And he's going to give me crap for not getting it.
Yeah, he is.
It is interesting. Sorry, you go, Jamie.
No. I was just going to say I really enjoy the film. I think it's got a whole lot going for it. I don't have a lot to complain about with it, and obviously we'll get into details in a minute. So.
I was going to say, it's interesting how you mentioned like the character moments between Dick and Barbara, because it does make you wonder if these things are all canon, what happened between this movie and then Mystery of the Batwoman, where, there seems to be romantic links between Bruce and Barbara.
I don't remember that as part of Mystery of the Batwoman.
I've never seen Mystery of the Batwoman.
Oh, really? Yeah, no, there's a part where Barbara calls and Tim's in the car and Tim's like, she misses you. And, like, they allude to, like, Barbara, like, and Bruce sort of having a thing because she's saying how much she misses him and when's he coming back into town. And Bruce gets all coy and sort of, like, makes out that they're going through a tunnel and hangs up the phone. And it's kind of like, what's going on there? Because aren't these supposed to all be in the same universe? Like, one movie she's with Dick and then the next, whoa, okay.
Well, yeah, I can tell you this, you're not giving me any encouragement to watch it because, as my statement has been well known, I do not approve of that relationship. So,
that's all it is. Like, it doesn't get elaborated on more than that, but yeah.
Interesting. I don't remember that moment, but Mystery of the Batwoman is the one I know the least. Like, Mask of the Phantasm, I know frontwards and backwards and every single beat. This one I know pretty well, but Mystery of the Batwoman, I think I've only seen straight through once or twice. I like it. It's not that I don't like it, but
it's a fun one.
Yeah.
It'd be a good one to do one day.
Oh, we will. We'll eventually get them all done, but we've got to space them out.
Oh, yeah.
So interesting. But yeah, no, like, I mean, the pairing of Dick and Barbara works, I think, so much better here. But like, well, I guess it's all in continuity, and then Killing Joke comes after Mystery of the Batwoman. And so they finally make it real. Yep. Anyway. So anyway, I really like this one too. I had a lot of really good memories of it. It's something I always did enjoy watching back when it was new. Again, I kind of fell out with it for a lot of years. Not that I didn't like it, I just didn't revisit it much. But it is one I think that remains really, really good. It's another great movie based from that animated series universe, and it is like, it's not like a slight offshoot of the animated series universe. It is right there in the middle of that continuity, and I love that. I love how it does continue the story of Mr. Freeze in a very logical and interesting way. And I love that it does take place in a moment where Batman, Robin, and Batgirl are already completely, they're already completely established, and so then it's just this additional adventure. I think that... to your point, Brendan, it's interesting. I do agree with you in that, like, the Mask of the Phantasm feels more like a movie. Mm-hmm. There's something about it that feels a little more cinematic, and it also feels
more money spent on it. You can tell.
Well, we'll get into that in just a second.
Well, maybe
I don't entirely agree. I think that the story of the scope of Mask of the Phantasm feels more cinematic, and I think the story of Mask of the Phantasm is a little more critical to the overall legend of Batman. And so because of how important that story is, it feels like a more important story to tell in a movie. Whereas to your point, this feels a little bit more like another adventure, a really long episode. Yeah. However, the one thing that, and maybe we see this differently, I think the animation in this is far superior to Mask of the Phantasm.
Yeah, I mean,
it's cleaner and the colors pop a lot better. I will definitely say that.
I think that it's a little smoother. It looks like they spent more money on it, especially because even just some of the action moments and the shading and some of the perspectives they give, and there's just a little more impressive animation going on in the traditional hand-drawn animation. To me, it just feels a little bit smoother, a little bit cleaner, a little more extensive than what we got in the show and what we got in Mask of the Phantasm. And then, of course, there's a whole additional layer where they do a lot more computer-generated stuff.
Yeah, computer stuff, yeah.
That also makes it feel like more than just an episode of the show, because you get quite a few moments there where you go, oh, wow, this is a lot more visually interesting, or it's pushed a little further than what I got for free on the show. So it just feels like this one, they did try to differentiate it from the show more. And maybe that was learning lessons from Mask of the Phantasm, where they were like, hey, we wish we could have had the budget to improve the animation on that movie, but the decision was made to go theatrical so late, we really couldn't. So we slapped a opening credits sequence on that was expensive, and then I think
that's what I was kind of basing it on, really, was the opening credits sequence of Mask of the Phantasm.
Yeah, because the opening credits to Mask of the Phantasm does feel really cinematic. And then, if you go back to that episode, one of my small nitpicks about that movie, although I love it, is that I just feel like the animation is pretty much what you get on TV. And this one, it did feel like a pretty considerable step up from what I got on TV.
Speaking of opening credits, I love the opening credits sequence of this movie.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously it's 1998 computer animation, so it's not great by today's standards. But when I first saw this movie, I just adored that opening credit sequence, like their kind of version of the '89 credit scene. Like they even used the same music.
Yeah,
it's I still like to this day. Every time I put it on, I love that opening title sequence. It's so good.
I completely agree. I think so. And I love that they use the 89 theme. The actual title card of SubZero in the ice, that one looks a little cheesy now, 20 years removed. But aside from that, I feel like most of the other CG in the movie holds up really well because it was very stylized. So it was able to still blend, and it doesn't necessarily...
blends really well, yeah.
Yeah, it doesn't necessarily call itself out as like being, oh, that's 1998 CG, because they tried to make it in the style of the traditional animation. So that protected it a little bit from getting too aged over the years. But yeah, and I mean, since you mentioned it, like I love that they open with the Batman '89 theme, but I actually really like the music throughout this movie too. I think it's Michael McQuistion, who he's done a lot of DC things along with his partners Lolita Ritmanis and Christopher Carter. They're the dynamic music partners. They've done so much DC. This one is just McQuistion is credited, but there were a few times, especially in the finale, where the music was just pumping, and I was like, man, this is really good. Like, he's going for it. There's some really great action scoring happening here. So I got to give a little shout out to the music because I really enjoyed it. This is not a soundtrack I own. I don't even know.
Just about to ask. Do you own this one?
I do not. I don't know if this one exists, but because I've never seen it, but it is really good. As you guys know, I was at WonderCon last week, and I think I posted it on social media, but I bought more Batman soundtracks because, of course, I did.
Mystery of the Batwoman.
I bought Mystery of the Batwoman, I bought The Flashpoint Paradox, and I bought Throne of Atlantis.
Nice.
Because they were just great deals. And so yeah, like this is one where I was listening to it and watching it, and I was like, oh, crap, now I need to try and track down this soundtrack too, because I don't have it. However, I do have a Batman playlist on my iTunes, and
of course you do.
So do I.
Have you ever met me? Take a guess as for how many songs is in my Batman playlist. Just take a guess.
414.
Yeah, well over 100 would be my tip.
Those are both great guesses. I really like those guesses. The correct answer is 1,021 songs.
Holy crap. I didn't even know there were that many.
Do you just dump entire soundtracks in there?
And guess how many hours that'll run you for?
A lot.
Over
36 hours straight.
Wow.
I bet he's ran that 36 hours straight more than once too.
1.5 days is yeah. So but no, yes, it is all inclusive. Like I dropped the entire animated series soundtracks into this playlist. Like it's not, I don't pick and choose. I just dump them in there, and then it's the perfect playlist to just hit shuffle all while I'm reading my comics. But yeah, I happened to notice that as I dropped in my brand new one this past week, and I was like, oh my God, over 1,000 songs? I might have a problem. That being said, now I'm looking for SubZero.
You could be addicted to, sir.
That's true.
Exactly. So anyway, I wanted to shout out the music. So anyway, the movie and the story itself, we can get into it. We all really like the movie. Again, I don't think it's a better movie than Mask of the Phantasm. I think the story of Mask of the Phantasm is stronger, but I think there are things I like better about this movie. Like I do think the animation is a little stronger. I like that it's focused on Mr. Freeze. I think, as you know, because of how much I love the character, I love this movie because it's about him. I mean, I would call him the main character over Batman in this movie. And I know that can often be a sore spot with any Batman movie of like, oh, it's more about the villain than it is about Batman. But in this situation, I think it's okay because you got this version of Batman in however many episodes on Batman the Animated Series. So it doesn't really bother me that the movie would be about Mr. Freeze.
I don't know if I've ever actually asked you this before, Andy. If I have, I apologize because I don't remember, and I'm getting old, and you know what they say about the memory. Are you a huge fan of Mr. Freeze because of like the Heart of Ice episodes or something along those lines, or from the 60s TV show? I mean, what actually gave you the affinity for that character?
So I already liked Mr. Freeze because I liked the idea of Mr. Freeze. I thought that, pardon the pun, he looked cool. So as a kid, when he would show up on the 60s series or even the like Super Friends, I just liked the way he looked. I liked the idea of an ice villain. I liked Mr. Freeze. I liked how he looked. And then when Heart of Ice came out and gave him that whole additional layer, that very tragic layer, I'm a sucker for tragedy. And so that's what made me really love him. So I already liked him. I already thought he was a neat villain, but once they gave him that tragic backstory and then that was what drove him, was what made me really fall in love with him wholesale.
Gotcha.
So, yeah. So anyway, like I said, I do love that this movie is about him. And as you guys said, like, I love how important Barbara Gordon is in this movie. One of the things I love about this movie is like, I think it was a stroke of genius from a story standpoint to tie in Mr. Freeze's motivation of saving Nora. And the only person who could save Nora is Barbara Gordon. And that immediately leads to conflict. I was just like, wow, what
are the chances though?
Well, there's that. I guess that's true. I was willing to go with it.
Oh yeah, totally. But it's not a nitpick. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah, but you're right. There were like 17 other options, but they had to go with the police commissioner's daughter, who's also the most high maintenance captive you could ever have. Because one thing I love about the movie, but is not so great for Mr. Freeze and for Dr. What's-His-Face, is that Barbara Gordon don't give up. She is not going quietly into the good night. She is putting up a fight every step of the way, which I think is awesome. I love that. Like, she just never stops fighting. There's never a point where she's just going to sit there and wait to get rescued. She is fighting tooth and nail every step of the way, and I love that. But
Babs don't shiv.
There you go. But if you're the kidnapper, you're probably like, damn it, we should have gotten someone who was with a little less self-esteem, someone who would just kind of give up because they have to work extra hard with Barbara.
Saying that's made me think of Dennis Leary in The Ref, but that's a whole different story.
Doesn't the doctor, when he's pulling up the information, say that the donor should be roughly equivalent in height and weight and everything? I mean, that seems awfully specific for an organ transplant. But
yeah, I think that was. I don't think that's true. I don't think that science checks out. But because I think a heart is a heart is a heart. But I think that in order for us to give a little more credibility of that, like, oh, that's why Barbara Gordon would be the perfect donor, I think they added that extra little piece in there.
Good thing hair color wasn't a one of the factors.
I know. Then the whole thing would have gone to pot. But yeah, so I mean, it is great that like Barbara Gordon is such a big part of this movie, and again, like, maybe has more screen time than Batman?
Probably.
Because so much of it is her versus
it's
Mr.
at
Freeze.
least equivalent, but
yeah. But yeah, so I do love that the movie opens with Mr. Freeze living peacefully in the Arctic, you know, like that. And I think that's another thing I really like about the characters. I like that he's a reluctant criminal. He's not just doing it because he's evil. He's not just doing it for kicks. He's not doing it because he hates Batman. He only does it if circumstances force him to do it. And so he's found his peace and quiet, and he's fine living that way until something happens and screws it up, and then he has no choice but to go back to the dark side. So you mentioned the polar bears. That was something I always remember about this is Mr. Freeze with his pet polar bears, because it's such a no-brainer that like you're like, oh, of course he would have pet polar bears. And I love them as like henchmen for the movie. But it was one of those things where I was like, okay, like that's something where you're really taking advantage of animation, because that's much harder to pull off in a live action movie. But in animation, you completely buy that he would have two pet polar bears.
And they've also got that character of Kunak as well, to sort of show that Mr. Freeze isn't a bad guy. Like, this kid only knows him as well, I guess, Victor. And you almost feel like he's a like an adoptive father or something to him.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, he's got some good looking out going there. I like that kid's inclusion. I mean, he wasn't a very strongly developed character, but again, he's another one of those that's put in much like the Doctor, where it gives you better motivations and ideas of who Freeze is as a character himself, and I really think his inclusion in there goes a long way, even though it's a fairly limited involvement.
Well, Kunak is my favorite Batman character, Jamie, so if you could take that back, that would be
well,
cool.
we know what tattoo you're getting on your other arm then, I guess.
Yeah, it's Batman on the
Kunak
left, Kunak on the
and
right.
Salmon. Kunak and the salmon.
Kunak and Blue Devil.
Kunak, Blue Devil's going on my back.
Okay. Covering
my entire back.
He's going to get a Blue Devil tattoo on his back like the Steve-O tattoo from the Jackass guy.
Yes. Yeah, why don't we see more Kunak in Batman comics? They could have had him come back as like Mr. Freeze 2 to avenge his adoptive father.
Send a tweet to Dan Jurgens. Maybe he'll show up in Batman Beyond now.
or he could have been in another Robin, because he ends up coming back to the mainland with Batman. We don't know what happens to him after then.
We're chock full of Robins, pal. We're set.
Kunak. There. Oh, but they always find room for another. Why not Kunak?
Yeah, fair enough.
Give me
get a little cultural expansion going there.
Give me an Eskimo Robin.
Hell, it'd sell action figures.
Yeah, he's got the domino mask, but also like the big fluffy hood.
I kind of want this now. Thanks.
That'd be like a fun trivia question. I'm like, name the little boy that Mr. Freeze adopted in SubZero. I wouldn't have gotten it.
I just watched the movie how long have we been recording? Because I was done like 5 minutes before we started recording, so like an hour ago. I couldn't remember his name until Brendan said it.
I know. I had to look it up just to make sure I was saying it right.
Told you I know the movie pretty well.
I mean, I love him. He's great. Yeah, nothing like cutting it close there, Jamie.
Yeah, I know. Something about having a job, having to pay bills, stuff like that.
Ew, isn't that the worst?
Well, that and I found I'm Going to Get You Sucker on Amazon Prime last night, so that kind of stopped everything I was doing.
Priorities. Anyway, I agree. I like the addition of the character because it really does just hammer home that Victor Fries is not bad for the sake of being bad. You know, he's usually well-meaning, but when it comes to his wife, everything else comes second.
Are we like over a wall here? I mean, are we doing that with this?
I think so. It's 20 years old.
Okay. I'm just going to throw it out there. One of my favorite character moments for Freeze in this is when he's handing out these, roughly baseball-sized gold nuggets to this doctor to motivate him to help him get this organ transplant done. And he gives him, the bit, and he's like, this is just but a sample of what I have to offer. And I mean, he basically, I don't remember the exact words he uses, but how I caught it, took it, or how he said it, I don't remember which it was. He basically said, all of this is meaningless to me, so you can have it all. Mm-hmm. And that shows his motivation being, he has one motivation, and that is Nora Freeze. That is it. There is nothing else that motivates him except for preserving her life and making her well. That is all that matters to him. Not all the gold in the world would make a difference to him. Not the power, not the domination of ruling or any of that stuff means anything to him except for her. And I think that was conveyed extremely well by the voice and the reaction of him not needing that gold, not wanting that gold. It doesn't mean a thing to him. If this guy can save her and make her better, it's all his. All this stuff that he's amassed that would have, who knows how many, potentially millions, hundreds of millions of dollars in monetary value, he doesn't even want it. Mm-hmm. He just wants her.
But even Belson has that moment where, I mean, he thinks he's just going to be doing an operation, and he's going to get all this money. Even he has that moment where he realizes that Barbara's going to die, and even he has that bit of like, well, this is going to go too far. Like, we can't do this. And then, Victor is essentially, well, if you don't, I'll kill you too. So, I mean, he even has that moment of redeemability, if that's a word. But, he still goes along with the plan. But, he's not all that bad either. He thinks he's going to be performing standard surgery, really.
Well, I mean, in his case, he's ultimately willing to go through with it all, only to preserve his own butt. I mean, he's getting his house foreclosed on. That's his motivation. Like, it's going to destroy his lifestyle, and he can't handle the idea of living broke. I mean, he doesn't like that. So that's his motivations, and he's willing to step over. He may not want to step over the line, but he's willing to step over the line in order to accomplish his goals, which makes him the douchebag portion of the villain character.
Yeah, which is true.
Who is doing it for what I would say is a very noble motivation.
Right. And they do a nice job of like setting up his desperation so you could see why, even if he's not, even if he's opposed to it, he's going to go along with it because he's got to save his own butt. Right. Because by the end, he's pretty much...
He's gone.
He's pretty much gone. Exactly.
Yeah.
And
exactly,
yeah. And all that gold didn't mean a thing because, spoilers, he gets crushed under a flaming chunk of oil derrick.
All he had to do was turn the boat the other direction. How ironic. But
the
other big thing I wanted to mention that I love, first of all, I mentioned that sweet moment between Dick and Barbara, and that's when they go outside of the whatever party or gala that they're at where Barbara shows up, and they just kind of come close together, like you kind of have them silhouetted around the moon, kind of, sort of, and he just kisses her softly on the forehead. And I think that is just beautiful. I mean, it's just, I don't know why that scene just really warmed my heart a lot seeing it. And then having him show up at a dance club that's doing big band music and that style, that was possibly my favorite sequence in the entire film, actually.
Yeah, it's super classic, old school,
Almost I love that sound anyway, and I think it's a lot of fun, and I think it was really done. I really like that music in that sequence a lot. So
yeah. Well, and if you go back, one of my favorite moments is when Commissioner Gordon is talking to Dick about Barbara, and it's being cross-cut with her beating up these muggers, of like how he's like, I can't even remember the lines, but he says
like she's always got guys chasing after her. Or something.
Exactly. Yeah. There's all these guys who got competition, and it shows her beating up all these guys. It's something about like, oh, she's a tough one, and then immediately cuts to her punching a guy in the face. It's just a great intro for her, and it's just a really funny juxtaposition between the conversation and her doing that. It's awesome.
Absolutely.
Is this? I can't remember. My memory's a little bit fuzzy on it. Is this a world where they know that she's Batgirl?
I think Dick and Bruce do, but
yeah.
Jim does not.
Oh yeah. Jim doesn't know. I just couldn't remember if it was alluded to that Bruce and Dick knew.
Oh, and the way I want to call this out too, because this is one of those things I just know will slip my mind if I don't mention it while I'm thinking about it. The Gordon is pretty well composed after his daughter's kidnapped, but he's got that snap to him, like the one, he's telling these guys, set up the perimeter 20 miles out, leave no stone unturned, that sort of thing. And he tells the one cop, I forget what he even tells him to do at this point, but he's like, "We're on it, Chief," or whatever. And Gordon says, "Then why are you still standing here?" I mean, he's composed, but you can feel I can't remember who does the voice for Gordon in this. You can
Bob
feel
Hastings.
Him. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. You can feel him delivering it in the way that he's still doing his job, but he's got that little extra incentive in the fact that he's doing his job to save his daughter right now. I thought that was a really great performance and turn in for Gordon as a character on that sequence there.
I love the scene prior to that too, where Dick goes after her.
Yes,
that's a great scene. That's some of the good computer animation stuff in it too, actually.
Yeah, it's really great. It's great the way they do this really awesome chase, but the way they cut back and forth between the traditional animation and the CG is done really well, and it looks great.
Yeah, isn't there a scene too where Dick apologizes to Gordon that he just he tried but couldn't get her?
Yeah, Gordon says, thanks for trying to save her, essentially, because he's in the hospital, busted up ribs or whatever from hitting that tree limb. Mm-hmm. And Gordon's, talking to him, and he turns around to leave, and then he just kind of looks back and he says, "And thanks for trying to save her," which I thought was a really nice touch, in addition to what I was saying before as well. Yes. Yeah.
The chase between Dick and Mr. Freeze is so good. I love it.
Love too when. Sorry, you go, Andy.
No, it's okay.
I was going to say when Gordon leaves the hospital room, how they instantly just switch to Batman and Robin mode, particularly Bruce. Mm-hmm. It's close the door, and they just get on it straight away.
Kicking into detective gear there.
Yep.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's great stuff. To go back just a second, it was just an observation. Have you ever noticed how, I want to say every Batman movie has a big gala, and this one is no different?
Pretty much.
So,
I mean, if you're talking about billionaire lifestyle, isn't that what they do, is go out and party?
Yeah, it's not an observation, it's just a pattern, but there is always a big gala in every Batman movie. It is required. And so when it happens here, I was like, oh, of course you got to have a gala. I mean, there was one in Mask of the Phantasm. Batman 89 had the fundraiser casino. Batman Returns had the Masquerade Ball. Batman Forever had the big box unveiling gala. Batman and Robin had the big charity auction. Batman Begins has the birthday party. The Dark Knight has Harvey Dent's fundraiser. Dark Knight Rises has another charity gala. They keep going. Batman versus Superman has the one at Lex's house. They all have a gala.
Well, what are they going to do? Talk about ghosts and goblins?
That's not a denial. I just remember Kevin Smith talking about when he was writing Superman Returns.
Yes.
Or whatever it was called at that point, where he said, yeah, I was writing all this crazy stuff, and I was writing cameos with Hawkman, and then I wrote about this big party, and Warner Brothers had no problem with Hawkman, but they're like, shooting these big parties is so expensive. Do you need the big party?
Interesting.
It's random.
Tuxedos must be hard to, expensive to hire.
You gotta feed a lot of hungry extras.
True.
Maybe that's it. Unless it's animation, and then you can draw as many as you want.
Well, I mean, how many cases of champagne do you need to open for that? Six? Is six good?
Six is good. Yeah, 6 is good. So anyway, sorry. Yes, Barbara is kidnapped, and Bruce and Dick are on the trail and on the case, and then Commissioner Gordon is doing what he can with his men. So yeah, you get Batman and Robin trying to, playing detective, trying to figure out where Barbara is being held, while at the same time, Barbara, I mean, they appeal to Barbara's goodness, and they're like, hey, like, we need you to save her. You're not going to let her die. And they leave out the fact that she'll have to die in the process, which is understandable. But, even then she's like, yeah, in a hospital, the way it's supposed to be, maybe I will, but not like this. And I just like that, like them trying to get her to cooperate. And until later on, she manages to eventually figure out that, oh, wait, this is not just a blood transfusion. This is something way worse. Yeah.
I have nothing further to add to that point.
I'm just over here nodding in agreement, which doesn't work well for radio. Sorry.
No, it doesn't. I was giving you the thumbs up.
Okay, thank you. I felt it. I didn't see it, but I sensed it happening. I do think there's the moment where, is it that, the doctor calls his broker, and it's on the tape. And I like the way the broker looks back, and Batman is gone, and so is the tape. It's very classic. But to me, it feels like it's such a Batman the Animated Series moment that Batman could figure out where they are based on the audio of a tape.
Yes.
I feel like we've seen that. Yeah, like that's the sound of a ship. It's a buoy.
I'm going to admit a moment of shame here. When they were sweating down the broker at the house while he was in bed there, for some reason I was asking myself, like in the first 2 or 3 seconds, why are they sneaking up on Alfred while he's sleeping?
It's Alfred's brother Wilfred, but he has amnesia, so he got a job on Wall Street.
I love how you fill in the blanks, Andy. It's great.
So, you do what you got to do.
This is why we need him in charge.
It's all about headcanon. But yeah, again, I just that's just like, to me, that's just like classic Batman animated detective work. You hear that? You hear that in the background? Sounds like a ship. They're at sea.
Sea?
Sea? Sea for Catwoman? Okay, sorry.
When this whole thing got started, I just instantly thought about a sparrow with a machine gun. So I'm kind of on that.
Well, as soon as he said that's a buoy, I was like, oh no, don't wear your metal belts. You'll get magnetically sucked onto the buoy. We've seen this before. It doesn't go well for the dolphin.
I mean, it is what it is. It's 107, an hour and 7 minute movie, and things move quickly, and not everything is going to be Shakespearean on the level that it's written. So there was a lot of hardline conclusions drawn about exactly where they were, how they were, and all that other stuff, just based on hearing a foghorn from a ship and a buoy.
Right, exactly.
But, it is what it is.
But I mean, if they have to work out where they are, they have that time constraint, and the way they do it, you don't really question it. Like, it makes sense for the story that they're telling.
I mean, that's just
it's efficient.
It's good enough. It doesn't hold up to scrutiny particularly well, but it's good enough. It serves its purpose.
Yeah, it's believable within the world that they're based in.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. And the fact that they set up, Commissioner Gordon has already scoured the coastline, they're nowhere to be found, you can understand where the logical leap is, that means they're in the water. But
the ocean's an awfully big place, so for him to deduce exactly where the frig they're at by those two sounds, like I said, scrutiny.
I was willing to go with it. Shh.
Anyway.
It's okay. Do you know why? Because he's Batman.
Exactly.
That's exactly right.
I mean, you're right. It moves so quickly. Like
if he could tell me that he knew the frequency of what buoy was where and what boat's horn that was, then maybe I get it, Like he recognizes that foghorn from that boat and finds its black box transmitter and figures out where it's located, and then he can kind of do a triangulation of where the call originated. No? All right. We can go with that.
That sounds like too much.
Yeah.
Too much.
Yeah.
I'd know that horn anywhere. It's the Lady of the Sea.
See?
And every Thursday at 9:45 p.m., she goes past this old abandoned oil derrick. That must be where they are.
And as
to the bat plane.
As they run past the docks to see where that ship is at, they see the white Portuguese next to it.
Oh dear. Anyway, I mean, you bring up a valid point that it's an hour and 6 minutes, so that's the other part that makes it feel a little less like a movie. Is it's short, it's really quick. Because
that's exactly what the runtime would be if it was 3 episodes without commercials too. Just saying.
Yeah, like what? Yeah, 22 minutes each.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, makes sense. But as they were like jumping in the Batwing to go off to Mr. Freeze's secret base, that was where I was like, oh man, like they're already there. That went fast, but the movie moves. More
great animation too with the Batwing.
Yeah, I really like it.
Love it.
Yeah.
I love the blue flame shooting out the back of it when they hit the afterburners or whatever. It's just cool stuff.
It's great. Yeah, I agree. I think it looks awesome. So
that
there are those
seems
moments.
a little bit much that it flies out of, but what are you going to do?
It's actually very Batman Forever. That
the bat symbol.
Yeah.
I'm just saying, twists and turns and everything. You'd think he'd just want like an open door and a straight line to go out of. That's all I'm saying.
But that doesn't look as cool.
I guess.
Batman knows how important it is to look cool.
No, that's true.
He does. He knows. I love that. I love that sequence as well. It's a little bit of eye candy, but nothing wrong with that. And off they go. I dig it. But as this was going on, and we were spending so much time with Mr. Freeze and with the Doctor and with Barbara, and even with Dick, that I was like, okay, like if I were gonna levy a complaint, I'm like, we don't get a lot of Batman. Like I feel like Batman's not as integral as everyone else seems to be in the movie. So that is one of, that's one where I would say, Mask of the Phantasm is a little stronger. It is definitely Bruce's story. In this one, he's a little more supporting.
And I get that. And, if somebody wants to hold that against it, I can completely see it. But it didn't bother me because there was enough other stuff going on in this. We know Batman well enough. I would rather get some time spent with these other characters, fleshing him out a little bit more, and then, have him do what he does. Like we know he's going to do anyway.
Right. And let's be honest, it's a trope of every live action movie from that era as well.
Yeah. Well, yeah, and like I said, it doesn't necessarily bother me. I'm just trying to watch it, and I'm trying to understand, like, maybe the people who don't like it as much as Mask of the Phantasm or something, and I'm like, what could be that? And I'm like, well, maybe that's it. But you're right, it's certainly not abnormal for any Batman movie.
I've seen the complaint levied against particularly particularly the live action Bat movies, like the Dark Knight movies, and I think it was Fat Man on Batman did the thing where somebody sent him in the numbers for like how much Batman is in each movie, and it's like ridiculously low. I think on the high end it was like 22 minutes or something. I mean, it wasn't.
We did that on this show, you big dope.
No, but I mean, somebody else did it too. We weren't the only ones.
I don't remember ever hearing it on that show, but we've reviewed it on this show.
All right. Well, anyway, somebody did it, and it's not a lot. It's not a great deal that he's in those. And you know what? I've never actually noticed, even in the ones I didn't really like, I didn't think to myself, God, this movie would be okay if it just had a little bit more Batman in it or something. Mm-hmm. It's never bothered me because I think they've mostly been structured well enough where it hasn't been an issue.
The only one, honestly, I really noticed it in is Rises. That's really the only one.
And that's the one that really, I think, triggered this whole thing. The whole thing happening is, they're like, oh, it's barely any Batman in the movie. So that's when, all these things came down of, well, how much was Batman in this movie, this movie, this movie, and this movie? Yeah. And the numbers are not really that different from, the lowest to the highest.
Nope, they're not.
Do you remember what the numbers were, Andy? I mean, was there like 6 minutes that separated the top from the bottom there? I honestly don't remember.
I can see if I can find it. I keep it.
While you're doing that, give me the tally for how much Batman was in this movie.
Well, this one wasn't on there. It was just the live action ones that I'd have to find it. I know I have kept it. I just it's probably in a different folder, so I don't have it. But it's not. You're right. It's not. I want to say it's between 19 and 25 minutes off the top of my head, something like that.
And that sounds about right, because I remember thinking to myself, it was about 6 minutes that separated the most from the least, which really isn't a lot. And, most of those movies are over 2 hours. So anyway, point being, it's never been a distractionary thing for me. And I think Rises triggered that conversation initially where they're like, okay, not enough Batman. And they're like, well, actually, there's as much Batman here as there is here, here, and here. This is just another one of those cases. So I can see there's not an overwhelming amount of Batman in this, but at the same time, I think there's enough Batman in it. And again, I enjoy spending the time with these other characters that aren't as, it's not that they don't have development or haven't been fleshed out, but obviously we've spent loads of time with Batman. We've spent less time with Robin, less time with Batgirl, less time with Freeze. Progressively, each one of those we've spent less and less time with. So getting more of the other ones and a little bit less of Batman doesn't bother me here.
I wonder if it's less noticeable in this one as well, because even though we're spending a lot of time with Barbara, but when you're watching the scenes with Barbara, she's still kind of very much in Batgirl mode.
Oh, she is. She's just not, no costume, but she's definitely in Batgirl mode. You're right.
It's like, I wonder if that helps. Like, you are still watching one of the heroes do their thing. It's just not Batman, and the hero isn't in costume.
Yeah. And I don't think there's any shortage of action in or out of costume, personally.
No,
not at all. And I even thought about that when Dick was chasing after Freeze, where I'm like, oh, this is like a Dick Grayson action scene. It's not a Robin action scene or a Batman action scene. It's Dick Grayson, but that's something unique and interesting. But I agree with you about the whole Batman screen time thing. It is something that will often be levied at any Batman movie that people want to rip on. But I feel like the Burton movies get quite a bit of that, and Dark Knight Rises probably. But
yeah, that's the other one I hear big complaints about is Batman '89. It's a Joker movie. It's not a Batman movie, and I don't agree with that at all. Obviously Joker's a huge centerpiece to the film, but I don't think that Batman is not.
And '89 was one of the higher ones, honestly, if I remember correctly.
It's people being nitpicky.
It's a bigger sin in Returns than it is in '89 for sure.
Well, and even Returns was like middle of the pack.
Yeah.
Yeah, like it wasn't as bad as people make it out to be. Someone I remember, our pal Matty Feck, who I do love, but he was the one who was like, "There's an hour, Andy. There's an hour with no Batman," and I was like, "That doesn't sound right." And I looked at it, and it's 20 minutes is the most you get without Batman, and I'm like, "Okay, let's relax. It's 20 minutes. It's not an hour." But yeah, so again, like it's not abnormal for any of the live action films. But here's the thing: it's not abnormal for most superhero films.
That's true too.
So it is the filmmaker's job to keep us invested and interested when the guy in the costume isn't running around. And some movies do that better than others. And
they can't all be the Tick where it's constantly in the costume, right?
Although I'd be okay with that.
I probably would too, to be honest. But
but yeah. So again, I didn't mean to spin us off into this tangent. I was just going, okay, like what are some things that maybe people could complain about in this movie? And that was one of the things I came up with. I'm like, well, I think that, like it's more about everyone else.
Well, I'll be honest.
But it's not a deal breaker because I still like the movie.
As I was watching it, maybe close to halfway through, I thought to myself, this should have really been Batgirl and Mr. Freeze SubZero, but then Batman comes out at the end and delivers huge like Batman always does. So again, not anything worth my time to complain about.
Right.
And if you're going to give me a surrogate to carry a thing for me, I'll take Batgirl if Batman's not going to be on the screen. I'm good with that. So. Mm-hmm.
All right. Anyway, sorry. Didn't mean to go down that. Didn't mean that to become a big old thing.
But I mentioned how much I like the polar bears.
Yeah. And they're loyal little polar bears. They're always
trained.
around.
That's amazing that he knew how to train them just right.
I know. Well, throw them some fish, they become your best friends.
Go to the zoo and try that. Go into the polar bear enclosure and throw them a fish and see how well you can get them to do tricks for you. And let me know what hospital you're at so I can send the flowers and such.
Right. I did like that, like, and this is earlier in the movie where like Barbara, like she actually succeeds at escaping, except for the fact that she's 5 miles in the middle of the ocean. Like, if it weren't for the location, she would have been scot-free. Yeah, no one would have needed to come for her. So, again, credit to Barbara in that case.
Yeah, they delivered really well with her. As you said, I mean, she's constantly fighting, constantly working her way out, constantly trying to escape. I mean, she's not being submissive in any way, shape, or form. And I love the way that they portrayed her there, that she's never, at any point, to me, a helpless character in this film. Like, there's a moment or two where you think she's going to be, and then she kind of bounces back from it. And I just think it was really well done on that front.
Yeah, I completely agree. But this does lead us to like the big finish, and the big finish, Barbara escapes yet again, and at this time is pursued by the Doctor, who, like a bonehead, starts shooting it up in the middle of this big oil rig, and so the thing catches on fire, and it becomes this big dramatic finale where the rig is on fire, and Batman and Robin show up, and Barbara's there, and Mr. Freeze, and the Doctor, and it's all this this big dramatic thing. And this was, like I said, this is where I really noticed the music, where I was like, man, this is rocking here.
It is. And now we're going to get into my one complaint of the entire film.
Okay.
Everybody ready?
Yes.
Yep.
I understand the concept that an oil rig is going to be abandoned. I get that. That could happen. What friggin' oil rig is going to be abandoned and still left full of oil? That's what I want to know. All right, really, that's like my biggest complaint about the entire film. So,
I didn't even think of that, but sure.
It's a good point.
We'll go with it. It serves the story to do what it needs to do.
Yeah.
Just saying, it seems a little implausible to me. I know I'm watching a film about superheroes and animation and easily trained polar bears, guys that live in sub-zero temperatures while wearing their boxer shorts. I get all that, but an oil company leaving behind oil? Nah, pal, that ain't happening.
I mean, valid point. Well, here's my one complaint. It was not so much about a lack of Batman, but I do have a little complaint here, is I wish, it's called Batman and Mr. Freeze SubZero. I wish Batman and Mr. Freeze would have shared a scene together before the very, very, very end of the movie. I wanted their paths to cross at some other point to have an interaction between these two main characters, because at the end, they barely even interact. And that was something where I felt like it was a little lacking, where I was like, oh, come on. Like, I mean, these are your two big guys. Have a run-in the middle of the movie and then lead to the big finale. But they don't. I was getting to the point where I was like, do they even meet in this movie? They might not even meet. But then they finally do. Mr. Freeze starts shooting at Batman. And then they have a quick interaction while Batman goes to save Nora. But, like, that's it. There is so little interaction between Batman and Mr. Freeze. I feel like that's a missed opportunity.
I kept waiting for him to show up in the middle of the chase sequence with Dick when he was pursuing that van. Mm-hmm. And he never did. So I kind of get where you're coming from there. It's not something that really bothered me, but at the same time, I get where you're coming from with it. So,
see, I've never really loved that title, to be honest. Like, I think it should have just been Batman Sub-Zero. I don't think you needed the and Mr. Freeze in there.
I mean, I thought so too. I always did think it was weird that Mr. Freeze's name was in the title, but regardless, you want your hero and your villain, and yes, I'm using villain a little loosely, but you want your hero and villain to be at odds in the movie, and they're almost in two separate, they're on two separate paths for 95% of the movie. And so I just wanted to see them come together.
That's true.
That makes sense.
By the way, I found the screen time thing.
Oh?
Finally. We've done it before, but we can do it again. So anyway, sorry. The one with the most is Batman 89. 27.5 minutes, or 22%. And the one with the least is The Dark Knight Rises, which is 21 minutes, or 13%.
So the percentage is off, but 6 minutes of screen time separates the top from the bottom.
But, like, Batman Returns is like 19%, or 25 minutes, and Batman Begins is actually 24 minutes, or 17%. So people are like, oh, Batman Begins had so much more Batman than Batman Returns, and, like, if you actually look at the numbers, not really. It's just it's perception.
Yep.
So, anyway.
Yeah.
always fun. Glad I found it. Again, for me, the trick is that I shouldn't notice, regardless.
Right.
I feel like in every superhero movie, and one of my favorite superhero movies is Captain America: The First Avenger. The dude doesn't put on the suit for an hour. I don't care. I'm so into the movie. I don't care.
How many superhero origin films have we sat through over the years where we don't even see a costume for the first hour of the film?
Right.
I mean, you couldn't count on both hands and both feet all of them. So, I mean, it doesn't faze me in the least. Back to this oil rig sequence. I love all the action that's going on in there. I'm trying to keep things on track here.
Lovely segue.
You're the one who took us off track in the first place, mister.
I'm trying to right the train here. Get off.
Listen. You drove us down this road. Now we are following it to its bitter end, where we will die alone.
Anyway, this oil rig, the action sequence going on here, I think were great. I love obviously the polar bears. I think they got taken out a little too easily, but I get it. Having them.
Well, you can't actually kill the polar bears. So
No.
They did the best thing they could do without getting the animal rights groups, aka my wife, all pissed off.
Well, it was well handled. Don't get me wrong. It's just the more polar bears, the better. But that's my personal.
I mean, that's a pretty safe rule for life. I think the planet would agree with you now.
I don't really think it is, because more polar bears in my life would mean I would run the inherent risk of probably getting eaten, and I would be a soft, tasty morsel, and I don't really appreciate that concept.
Here's the secret of polar bears. Give them a Coca-Cola.
Right.
And they're happy as can be. Try that at your local
zoo and let me know how it works out. Send me
I've seen the footage. It works great.
Send me the address of the morgue where I can send those flowers.
Coke would never lie to me. There are friends, there are corporate overlords, but they mean well. And they've taught me that
you got a better shot of getting one to Santa than you do a polar bear tipping one back. So I'm just putting that.
Yeah. Santa loves Coca-Cola. And do you know what else he loves? McDonald's.
Yeah. Oh, God dang it.
That's just because Brendan's here.
It's a trigger word. I'll be getting Big Macs after this show. So stupid.
I wonder if people follow when we talk about that. I don't even remember where it came. I mean, I know where it came from, but I don't even remember when we first started that. Anyway, I'm sorry. The oil rig is on fire. It's on
flames.
Fire. Flames coming from the side of my face. Yeah.
And freeze instantly. I mean, again, showing these. I'm not a villain. I just have this particular motivation that caused me to do some villainous type things. He's got the broken leg. He's underneath the debris that's fallen, and they bail him out of that, and they're trying to get him out of there. It's like, no, you have to go save Nora. And she opens up the door and the flames shoot at her, or was it Batman? I don't even remember which one it was now. The door gets open, the flames shoot out, and he starts using the freeze gun to get the flames back so they can get down and save her. So like they're working in tandem here, which is a really quick switch to get flipped, but it makes sense for his motivations that he would be doing that. And then they get her out, and he's like, come back for me, save her, and then you can come back for me. Everything is always her first, and I love that is consistently out in front for him. That's very well done on the part of the writing there, I think. And then the tragedy of the Batman not being able to hang on to him as he's pulling up the thing, and he falls to what you assume is his demise. And then, Batman gets out at the last second and fires the grappling hook at the bottom of the Batwing, which I'll go with it. You can make logistical arguments against it, I guess, but it was fine. It's suspenseful enough. So, I mean, you get all that wrapped up really nicely. Everybody goes home safe. And then you get the thing at the end, and this really probably was my favorite thing, because this is the one that actually almost got me choked up a little bit, was the newscast at that polar station. I don't even remember which station it was now, but the guys that were up there watching the newscast, and they're talking about the successful transplant that she had, and she's recovering in stable condition, and he's outside, and the tears rolling down his cheek. He's got that huge smile on his face. I love that so much, seeing his reaction to hearing that news, because that's all he ever wanted. And then he sort of kind of has his walk off into the sunset with the polar bears.
And I love the ice cast on his broken leg.
Yes.
I think that's such a cool touch. I love that. I mean, you just drove us right to the end there, Jamie.
I did, because I wanted to make sure I got that in.
No pausing. well, since we're at the end, I agree with you. Yeah, it's like, what a great way to wrap it up. But again, like wrapping it up with Mr. Freeze, like that he's the one that the resolution is centered around. And yeah, so like Batman, Bruce Wayne whisks Nora away and is actually able to revive her and save her life. It is a kind of a beautiful resolution for both of those characters. But because Nora is brought back from the dead, that is why this is our Easter episode.
Nicely played.
Yeah. So happy Easter, everybody. But no, I'm with you. It's like a really touching, sweet, warm moment at the end of the film. Whereas like the end of Heart of Ice is a very tragic and sad and melancholy ending. This is one where Mr. Freeze gets as close to a happy ending as he can.
Right.
Then when you watch the next couple episodes, less happy. But for this moment, it is a happy ending for him and for Nora.
I'm not familiar with the episodes that follow this up, so I'll have to get around to watching those one of these days. But, again, I really like Heart of Ice. I'm not as, head over heels in love with it as far as rankings for my favorite Batman the Animated Series episodes as you guys are. And that's what it is. And that gives you an appreciation for his character. But for me, the last few seconds that he's on screen there gave me a completely new and strong appreciation for that character and how he does things.
Mm-hmm. No, it's totally, and it does seem like their attempt was to wrap up Mr. Freeze's arc with this movie. This feels like a series finale for Mr. Freeze. And then when they got renewed for the new Batman Adventures, they're like, well, but Mr. Freeze is too awesome. Like, we can't just, leave him, on the bench. We got to still use him. And so unfortunately they have to keep taking away his happy ending so he can come back. He can keep coming back. It's like one of those things, like they want to give him that happy ending, but if you still want him to be around to be a foil for Batman, you have to keep throwing bad news in his way. It's kind of like the Hulk. Like, you can never let Bruce Banner be cured of the Hulk, no matter how hard he tries, because what's the fun in that? Same thing here. It's like Mr. Freeze. So, but in this moment in this movie, it does feel like they wanted this to be the conclusion of his story.
Is it in the new Adventures of Batman, like the season 4? Is that where he's the robot with the head that just moves on its own? Okay.
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah.
Where like the rest of his body,
it's kind of like Krang.
His body like dies because of what happened to it.
Yeah.
And so then he's just a head.
Yeah. Don't
Spoilers,
like that
Jamie.
version.
Well, I don't have to watch that episode, guys. Thanks. Peace.
Spoilers.
You get he doesn't review it one day.
It's true. He doesn't look as good in the new Batman Adventures as he does here. That's the other thing. He looks so good in this movie. It's already like the perfect design from the animated series, which I love anyway, because it's the perfect blend of like still feasibly functional, but still looks cool. But with the improved animation, he just looks great in this. And I love Mr. Freeze in the goggles. I think the goggles make the look.
Does he have that weird eyebrow thing coming up off the goggles in Heart of Ice too? Because I didn't remember that.
I don't remember either.
You know what I'm saying? It's like they kind of give the angry eyebrow thing going on in this.
Yeah.
I don't remember that being in Heart of Ice or not.
I want to say the look is consistent, but I would have to go back and check for sure. But yeah, I just think he never looks better than he does in this movie. So yeah, anything else about the finale? Oh, this is what I want to say about the finale. Is I also appreciated that like the Batwing, which has 2 seats, they were able to get 5 people in to escape from the oil rig. Thank God Batman built that with a little breathing room, because otherwise poor Nanook or whatever, Kunak, that's what his name, Kunak. Poor Kunak.
Holy shit.
Nanook of the North, what? Poor Kunak would have just been out of luck. He'd been SOL. He had been riding a polar bear with Victor to shore.
The Heart of Ice did have the eyebrow thing going on off the goggles.
Okay.
Thankfully, that small palm-held device can show me things when I ask it to.
Thanks, Internet. I also thought, like, I loved the idea of, the whole thing is on fire, but Mr. Freeze is able to use the freeze gun to clear a path so that way Batman and Barbara can go save I was going to say Nanook again. Kunak. Kunak and Nora. But I was like, Batman, can't you borrow the gun? Because it's probably going to come in handy once you're under there. Because it's not hooked to Mr. Freeze's stuff. It's autonomous. It works on its own.
Andy, I don't know if you're unaware of this, so I'll just explain it to you. Batman doesn't use guns.
Oh, right. Of course. Obviously. Even a freeze gun?
Nope. No guns.
He picks it up, and Mr. Freeze goes, yes, use it to save Nora. And Batman breaks it in half and goes, this is the weapon of the enemy. We don't need it. And then they all burn to death. The end.
Man, that would be a harsh turn.
It's the director's cut. It's the one you can only get it on bootleg at conventions.
Hashtag release the Boyd cut.
I was gonna say, yeah, release it. You beat me to it.
Oh, no.
Oh, it was on the tip of my tongue and you just beat me to it.
It hurts so good.
I'm going to really regret that later, I
know. Oh, man. Okay. But yeah, so anyway, anything else about the finale, Brendan, that we glazed over that you didn't get a chance to mention?
Nothing I can think of. It's just a really good, fun finale. I really enjoy it.
I think that for me, the finale is big and grand enough that feels like a movie finale.
Yeah.
Does that make sense? It feels like a big epic finale. All the characters are in one spot. There's explosions, there's action, there's a lot of conflicting things going on between the characters until they finally, join forces to save Nora. I don't know. I just think it's the right scale for a big finale to sell this as a movie.
Side note, if you're interested in a live action version of this sans capes and superheroes, you can watch Deepwater Horizon.
Oh, nice. I was going to say the beginning of Man of Steel, but that works too. So, yeah, very cool. Batman and Mr. Freeze, SubZero, the conclusion of the Mr. Freeze saga until it's not. So, yeah, closing thoughts and letter grades, Brendan.
I can't really add anything that I haven't already said. It's just a really good, fun Batman movie that, what is it, just over an hour runtime, makes it a nice, quick watch as well. So you don't need to commit the time that you would to even the likes of Mask of the Phantasm and everything. It's got the relationship with Batman, Robin and Batgirl, those three characters being in it, that's the fun selling point for me, more so than Mr. Freeze. And it's just a great Batman movie. Put it in, have fun, watch it. If you can, obviously enjoy the new Blu-ray if you're lucky enough to live in a country where they release that sort of thing. It's like I said, it's one that I watch at least once, maybe twice a year, and there's a reason for it. So I'd have to go B+.
Awesome. The reason that we got this Blu-ray and you didn't is because we made America great again.
Okay.
Oh, Lord have mercy.
Jamie, what about you?
Really good entry into the Batman animated series mythos. I think it's a lot of fun. It's very entertaining. There's good action. I think there's some fantastic character moments throughout. I wish I could talk today. Great appreciation gained for Freeze here that I may not have gotten anywhere else, at least not to the degree that I did here. So for that, it elevates it basically a point for me, because this would have been right around a B+, A- range for me. But just those character elements boost that up to an A.
Awesome. Very nice. And I'm glad to hear that, especially since you came to this one late. So I'm glad it was still able to win you over without any nostalgia.
Yeah, I'd recommend it to anybody that wanted to watch a Batman cartoon, which should be everybody,
Awesome.
Especially everybody listening to this show.
Yeah. Anybody I want to know or hang out with.
Hear, hear.
This one,
in case I didn't mention it, I really like polar bears.
I've heard that.
Such a
So
polarizing
stock up on
view.
some Coca-Cola.
So now I have
Oh,
a trio
dude.
in my repertoire. I like Batman. I like Justice League. I like polar bears.
Wonderful.
And apes and monkeys and stuff.
Well, there's that too, but I mean, that's just, everybody loves those. That's just a given.
Okay.
All right. Anyway, for Batman and Mr. Freeze Sub-Zero, I'm with you guys. I love this one. I think it's great. As Brendan said, it's a surprisingly quick watch. I checked, it is 10 minutes shorter than Mask of the Phantasm. So not the biggest difference, but it's quick. It moves fast. What I really love about it is how it is so ingrained in the Batman the Animated Series world. It is 100% a Batman the Animated Series movie, and so if you're a fan of that world, you're gonna love revisiting it through this movie. And I love how much time they give not only to Mr. Freeze, but to Dick Grayson, and to Barbara Gordon, and then Batman himself. So I think that the trade-off of a little less Batman is more than worth it to get more with Dick, more with Barbara, and more with Mr. Freeze. I think that's awesome. It's exciting, it's fun, it's entertaining. The animation, really impressive, and looks really great on the Blu-ray. Sorry, Brendan.
That's fine.
Eventually. Can you play American Blu-rays down there?
I believe so. Because
Okay.
I don't think Blu-rays are region coded.
They're not?
All right. I don't know.
I'm not sure. I don't think so.
I've never tried to watch a movie in Australia, but if so, Christmas ain't far. Actually, it is kind of far. But anyway, we'll see. But yeah, I think the Blu-ray
Easter's
is
really
definitely...
close.
It's true. It's true. Let me hand it to a bunny and he'll bring it to you. But anyway, I think the Blu-ray is definitely worth your time and your money. And the movie looks as good as you could possibly want it to look. So for me, yeah, I would go like, I might split the difference and go with an A-. And the only reason for the minus is because, like I said, I just wanted Batman and Mr. Freeze to interact a little bit more. But it's a really good, entertaining, solid movie. I enjoy the hell out of it.
Boy, if that ain't ironic that the guy who spent the least amount of time watching this gave it the highest score.
It is. But it's a good one. It's really good. So a B+, an A-, and an A for Batman and Mr. Freeze Sub-Zero. Good flick. Go pick it up. Enjoy it this Easter. And celebrate the return of Nora Freeze, obviously. So check that out. But now we're going to check in with you guys as we crack open the Wayne Manor mailbox.
Hey, Pewter.
What's up, Batman?
Anything exciting happened when I was gone?
Andy and Jamie stopped by. They're from the Holy BatCast.
My favorite.
Alfred took them to the Batcave. Something about bat hangers. Your inbox is full. Would you like to read your emails?
I can't wait.
Well, that entry for the intro was from our pal Jeremy Balls. Jeremy.
Very nice.
That was good. I enjoyed that.
Yeah. Very well done. That is awesome. I love it.
The only thing that's missing is Iron Man sucks.
Yeah. So close. Now it's an A-. Damn it. No, well done, Jeremy. Thank you so much for sending that in. That is great. Another entry for the Wayne Manor Mailbox. I can talk. Contest. Thank you for sending that in. Guys, we still have a bunch more that we have not listened to, but we are wrapping up submissions at this point. So I said March 31st, which is today when we're recording. Yes, it is today. So I think we've got all the submissions we will get, but we still have quite a few that we have not played on the air. We will eventually play them all on the show, but we will choose the winner sometime over the next couple weeks. But huge thank you to everybody who sent in an entry. You guys are awesome. Some really creative, really fun ones. And I didn't know how this would go. I didn't know how many people would participate, but you guys really knocked it out of the park. And I can't thank you guys enough. Some really great intros, and even though we're going to pick a winner, I might just use them all in rotation because they're all awesome. You guys are just so cool. So well done.
Very nice.
I'm a little bit disappointed that I had all the internet issues that I've had over the last month, because not that I wanted to enter for the competition or anything, but I did have an idea for one. I couldn't make it because my internet wasn't working. So, oh well.
Well, if you make one, you can still send it. You're just not going to win the prize.
Oh, I wouldn't. Yeah, I never wanted to be in the competition to win the prize, because plus it'd cost you way too much to send it over here anyway. But
Oh
yeah,
my God,
I just had an idea for shits and giggles for one I was gonna make up, but one day when I get the time, I'll send it through to you.
Nice.
It's didgeridoo music, isn't it?
No,
Oh, I hope so.
that's not a letter. This is a letter.
All right, that's it. I'm dead. I'm out.
Perfect.
I'm over with.
Perfect. Well, you can't die yet. We got a couple emails to read. Then you can die.
All right.
This email here is from Eric Thomas. It says, "Howdy, y'all. Just want to give your thoughts on comic audiobooks. With a full-time job and a parent of 2, I never have time to read comics, in which I turn to audiobooks. My question is, do you have any recommendations of what to listen to, or is there any particular website I can go to and listen? Thanks for all you do, Eric Handyman Thomas." Eric, thank you for the message. I gotta be honest, I have not listened to any comic audiobooks. So I'm not much help here. Gentlemen, do either of you have anything to share?
I've never listened to one either, and I gotta be honest, I would think that you would lose something with that, because the artwork is generally such an important part of telling the story in a comic book.
Mm-hmm.
I never have. I mean, I'm not really an audiobook person anyway, which is weird. The main reason for that being that I listen to too many podcasts, so I don't have time.
Right.
Yeah. So I can't
I'm so sorry,
anything.
Eric. Yeah, I'm so sorry, Eric. I don't know. I've never even looked into it. I can Google it and see what comes up. Listen to Robin, Everyone Loves the Drake. They're about to do an audio comic for A Lonely Place of Living. Does that count? But yeah, I get it. Finding the time is always tough. So good luck. I hope you find something. But as Jamie said, the artwork is half the show. So hope you can carve out a little time to enjoy your comics. Next message here is from Tim Rooney. Tim Rooney.
The Ginger Ninja.
Oh. Is that his wrestling name?
It is now.
It says, "Hey, Andy and Jamie, Tim Rooney here. I hope all is well and you keep pumping out great episodes. Keep it up. My question is, who do you want to score the Matt Reeves Batman trilogy? My personal choice would be Don Davis, who is best known for the Matrix trilogy. I feel he could bring something unique to Batman while being memorable with numerous motifs sprinkled throughout. Would love to hear your thoughts. Sincerely, Tim Rooney." Hey, Tim. And for those of you guys listening, Tim is on Please Rewind with Jamie, so he is part of the family. Guys, any thoughts on who could do a great new Batman score? Brendan?
Honestly, I'm shocking with composers. I don't know them that well. I mean, the only composers I really know are the ones that have already done them, like already done Batman movies. So, yeah, I'm not really going to be able to give an answer for this one. I don't know. I honestly have no idea.
Well, thank you, Brendan. You've been no help at all.
Glad I can be here.
Don't play that to your wife. She's going to hate me.
She won't.
Jamie, what about you? Thoughts on composers?
Is Weird Al Yankovic busy?
I think he can always find the time.
That would be definitely unique.
It would. That's true. Is that it? That all you got?
I've been dying for Daft Punk to do another musical score for a movie since Tron Legacy, because I thought that was absolutely brilliant. I don't know how well that would blend in style-wise with a Batman film.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of same thing with Disaster Piece. I love their score for It Follows. I've been waiting for them to do something else, but again, I think their sound might be a little bit closer depending on the themes of the film. But I mean, to go with a more traditional answer right now, I'm absolutely obsessed with the Black Panther score, and I can't remember that guy's name that did it. I apologize because I'm horrible with names, especially European ones.
Well, it's not it's Ludwig Göransson.
Thank you. I'll take him because that guy does really nice.
It doesn't roll off the tongue, though.
Not really.
He just signed on to something. Venom. Yeah. He just signed on to Venom. Yeah, I like him. I think he's an up and comer. Don Davis, I'm not the biggest fan of. He's okay, but I've never listened to one of his scores that has blown me away. He did do The Matrix, but those aren't scores that I know super well. He did Jurassic Park 3, and that was okay. But yeah, he's just, I don't know. I don't know what else he's done out there.
I love the Matrix scores, but I don't know of a single other thing he's done outside of that readily.
Yeah. I mean, I have my favorite composers, and so those are who I kind of who I just lean towards. So Alan Silvestri, I love. He just did a great score for Ready Player One. I know he's doing Avengers. He did Captain America, so I don't know if he wants to cross the street, but I just think he's reliable. He's great. He always does good stuff. Henry Jackman is also a really consistent, strong composer out there right now. Harry Gregson Williams, I think, is terrific. And his brother, Rupert, is already playing on the DC side. So Rupert, did Wonder Woman. He's going to do Aquaman. So if Harry wants to join the family and do Batman, I think he'd be awesome. But if Matt Reeves is consistent, he's worked with Michael Giacchino on the Apes movies. My hunch is Giacchino will come over and do Batman as well. And I hope he's got a great Batman score in him.
I know you're a huge Giacchino fan, and I've liked all the work I've heard from him.
I'm usually a huge Giacchino fan. Like
usually? Oh.
A couple of his Doctor Strange score really let me down.
I couldn't remember a note out of Doctor Strange. So, yeah, I guess I'm kind of with that.
And there you have it.
I love his John Carter score. Love it.
John Carter is great. His Spider-Man Homecoming score was quite good. I wasn't super impressed with his Star Trek scores. So, for me, he's a little more hit and miss. But if he's doing Batman, I hope he's going to step up in a big, bad way.
I would think anybody doing Batman would have to know that they need to going into it. But that's just me assuming.
Yeah. Thanks for the message, Jim. Next message here is from Duncan McKay. It says, "Hey, Andy and Jamie. I've noticed lately there have been things in DCEU movies that people criticize, and yet some of the same things have been done in Marvel movies with no complaints. Yet when DC does it, oh no, everyone hates the movie, except for DC fans. What do you think of this? Sincerely, your 15-year-old Bat fan, Duncan." Duncan, thank you for the message. Jamie, you want to take a crack at that?
I don't really want to, but I will. Personally, that lopsided bias that goes one way or the other is just aggravating as hell to me. I can't stand it. I mean, most recently, and I never wanted to say this out loud in public because I don't want to be petty, but since you asked, I'm going to say it. I don't think there was any worse CGI in Justice League as far as character face motions, like with Steppenwolf and such, than there was in Thor Ragnarok. And I've never heard one single complaint levied against Thor Ragnarok for that. So I've noticed it, but I don't want to be petty. I don't care. That stuff doesn't bother me. In neither movie did it bother me. I just noticed it in Thor Ragnarok and thought, that's weird that this looks basically the same as what Steppenwolf looked in Justice League. Never heard anybody say a word about this. So I think that bias exists for whatever reason it may be. I don't know, but I just love to get back to where we can all enjoy movies from Marvel, from DC, from Dark Horse, from whoever's turning these movies out, and just enjoy them as fans and stop drawing lines in the sand. I don't think it's necessary.
Yeah. Brendan?
I'm not a conspiracy theorist myself, but sometimes it is a little hard to ignore that, one team gets a free pass where another team gets overly criticized. So that's really all I want to say about that. I don't want to open a can of worms.
Yeah, I mean, the problem with this question is, number one, it's very valid. Yes, there are absolutely things that DC gets taken to task for that Marvel gets away with, or Star Wars gets away with, or whatever. there are double standards out there. There are geek double standards, but it's hard to address it without starting to bag on one of those other things. And I don't really want to do that. But I will say this, is that as fans, it is in our nature that if there is something we already don't like, we're going to find things to continue to complain about that thing that we've already made up our mind about. Whereas if there's something you already decided you love, you're going to be very open to looking the other way when that thing that you love has flaws. And I think that with the DC films, starting with Man of Steel split people right down the middle from day one. And when that happened, the people who didn't like Man of Steel didn't just not like it, they freaking hated it with the rage of 1,000 burning suns. And because of that, they were not going to give an inch, and all they wanted was to reinforce the narrative that they were right and this is crap, and they were going to try and find any ammunition they could to support that stance. And that's why that happens. And those, and some of those same people, they're like, no, Marvel's earned my trust. I love what Marvel does. Marvel does no wrong. And you go, yeah, but what about this about Marvel? I don't care. It's Marvel. They've earned it. And DC, they don't want to cut them that slack. And that's just the way it goes. I can often be guilty of the same thing. I've been very vocal about I'm not a big fan of what Fox has done with the X-Men films. And so when one of those films comes out and something really stupid is in it, and all the people who love those films go, oh, I know it's stupid, but who cares? I love the movie. And I go, no, it's stupid, and I'm going to tell you it's stupid. So I'm guilty in the same way. It's just, it comes with your own with your own personal biases, and you just have to own it. Yeah. Okay. Anyway.
I still like polar bears.
I still like Coca-Cola.
We should go have a Big Mac and discuss this more.
We should at Christmas time. Anyway, next message here is from CJ Higgins. It says, hey, Bat fans. I was wondering if y'all had read the graphic novel Joker by Brian Azzarello with art by Louis Bermejo. I love it, and the book was big since it's based on Heath Ledger's Joker. The art is amazing, the story is great. A podcast on the book or a review would be nice to hear your thoughts. I really enjoy the episodes where you talk about Batman comics, past and present. Jamie's little Twitter comic reviews are fun. Your bat friend, CJ Higgins. Thanks, CJ. Jamie, he likes your little comic reviews.
I've been slacking on those lately. I did drop a couple today because I did get the Metal number 6, wrap that up this morning, and Doomsday Clock number 4. If you want to go find them, they're out there on my Twitter. For those who don't want to go looking, I really liked one, and I just thought the other was in. So I'll let you figure out which one's which.
Great. As for Joker, yes, I've read it. I remember enjoying it. The details are fuzzy because it's probably been 2 or 3 years since I've read it. But yeah, I think that is a prime candidate to do an episode on sometime in the future. Guys, have you read this one?
Yeah, I remember getting it day of release. It's a really great graphic novel. But I'm the same as you. I haven't read it for maybe 3 years, maybe 4. So the details of the story are a little bit fuzzy, but I just love the artwork in it. The artwork's fantastic.
Yeah, Lee Bermejo's art is so unique, and it's almost like photo real. It's so interesting.
Yep.
Jamie?
I actually have never read this. I've had it recommended to me a few times by various people. I think even Guy Milks had recommended it to me. For whatever reason, it's just one I've never gone back to catch up on, but that doesn't mean I can't adjust the priorities to make it happen sooner than later if necessary.
Well, there you go. One of these days we'll force you to.
Seems to be the only way I get anything done, so.
That's how we do it. But anyway, CJ, yeah, thanks for the recommendation. I think it's a really good candidate. We'll continue to look at that. And then one last message here is from Tommy Sanders. It says, greetings, Holy BatCast family. It's my first time writing in. I'd like to know, would the X-Men franchise and the MCU still happen if these following 3 movies were made in the 90s? Tim Burton's Batman 3, the Tim Burton Catwoman movie, and Tim Burton's Superman Lives. Tommy, thank you for the message. Brendan, what do you think?
Probably. I don't know. I mean, if if the Batman franchise was still viable and those things had happened, I guess it would make sense for another studio to want to have their bite of the cherry, kind of similar to what's happening these days. Everyone wants to have a comic franchise out there, so I guess.
Mm-hmm. Jamie, thoughts?
I would say yes, particularly if those movies were, successful, box office wise, particularly. We used to write into Wizard Magazine. They used to have this fan casting thing on who you'd want to play what character if they made this comic book into a movie. And X-Men was a one that just went on forever with me and my friends. Like, I was obsessed with the idea of Mel Gibson playing Wolverine, and obviously everybody on the planet wanted Patrick Stewart to play Professor X, and that's like the one piece of popular fan casting that ever came to fruition that I can recall. But the X-Men's always been a huge marketable franchise. It was, one of the best-selling comics at Marvel for years. So yeah, I certainly think it would have happened sooner. Well, I don't know if it would have happened any sooner. I don't remember if did that one have development rights issues like Spider-Man did? I can't remember.
Which one?
X-Men.
X-Men or?
Yeah. Because I know
no.
they tried to make a
No,
Spider-Man movie for a freaking decade, and they could never get it off the ground.
Well, yeah, because Spider-Man was the rights were all fuzzy, and a bunch of people owned pieces of it, and they had to untangle all that. X-Men, that wasn't an issue. Fox owned the rights, and they made the movie. I agree with you, though. I think that I don't think these would have changed the course of history in how Marvel movies were made. I think that the X-Men movie probably would have still come when it did. I don't see why these would have changed that. If anything, if these movies were successful, it could have accelerated it. And same thing with the MCU movies. I think that was independent enough that it wouldn't have drastically changed based on what these movies did. If anything, if these movies' success would have maybe caused more, but because of how because of how Catwoman never got made the way it was supposed to, and Burton left the Batman franchise, and Superman Lives never happened. Like I think that definitely did a lot more to break up the rhythm of DC movies than I think it would have affected any Marvel movies. So, anyway, thank you guys for your messages. We really do appreciate it. If you've got a message for the Wayne Manor mailbox, you can send that to Holy BatCast at rf4rm.com. Thank you to everybody who does write in. We do love reading your questions and hearing what's going on with you all. So thank you for that. And thank you to everybody who leaves us an iTunes review. We have not gotten a new iTunes review since the last episode, so we don't have any to read today, which means that if you leave one in the next week, you're up next, buddy. So please, if you've got a spare moment, go to iTunes, leave us a review. We really do appreciate that. But that's where we're going to wrap up this episode of Holy BatCast. We actually blazed over episode 150 without even mentioning it, because this is 152. So we're getting right up to 200 almost.
It doesn't seem like it should be that many.
We just keep on trucking.
You sure you numbered these right?
I'm pretty darn sure.
Okay. All right. I'll go with it.
We're moving right along. Brendan, so glad you were able to make it. It's been a while.
It has been a while. Thank you for having me on. It's good to be back. I love podcasting with my Bat brothers. You guys know that, so it's always a pleasure.
Absolutely. Happy Easter out there in Australia. If the folks want to keep up with you, where can they do so?
You can find my show, even though it's on kind of a forced hiatus at the moment due to work schedules with me and Steve, at thenightlight.podbean.com. Nightlight spelled with Knight, or at NightlightPod on Twitter, or you can follow me at Lowy007, LOWY007.
Wonderful. So yeah, follow Brendan there, and then Jamie, they probably already follow you, but just in case they don't, where can they do that?
You can find me on Twitter at BatRaider3960, making fun of how Brendan says schedule.
What's wrong with that?
Say it again. Say it again.
Well, now I can't remember which way I said it. I say schedule.
Yeah, that's it. That's totally wrong.
It's like tomato.
I absolutely love it.
That's how my dad says that.
Does he really? Is your dad
And
Australian?
he's not Australian. No, I just think he thinks he's cool.
All right.
The way you guys
He's
say,
pretty cool.
the way
He's
you guys
pretty
say,
cool.
Hyundai is really weird too. But anyway.
Say what?
Like the car company, Hyundai?
Yeah, it's called Hyundai. Like the way it's said over here is.
You're supposed to say Hyundai?
That's
Hyundai.
Hyundai.
That's how it's said over here is Hyundai.
It's Hyundai.
Oh my
It says so
God.
right on the friggin' commercials. Hyundai, like Sunday.
And it says
Yeah.
and it says Hyundai over here on the commercials.
You guys are probably like those crazy British that say Jaguar and all that stuff too, aren't you?
Yeah, Jaguar.
Just when I think we're all the same people, Hyundai comes up and messes it up and shows us
There's another one
how
too.
separate we really are.
Nokia is another one you guys say differently.
Who?
The cell phone company. You'd say Nokia, but over here it's Nokia.
I don't say it at all, so we're good there.
Nokia? Yeah.
Yeah, I mean iPhone killed them, but yeah, that's another one I noticed when I was over there a long time ago too. I was like,
You sure
what
you
are
don't
they
say
talking
e-phone
about?
over there or something?
No. E-phone.
I'm just glad to hear you guys have iPhones.
Oh wait, we have iPhones. They have Oi phones.
Well, this has been the Holy BatCast language corner.
The
I hope
cultural
you've enjoyed
relations episode.
it. Right? The linguistics corner. It's why you listen to this show. We're going to stop wasting people's time. Thank you guys for downloading the show. Thank you for listening. Please do subscribe to the show. Please leave an iTunes review. And as Michael Keaton's Batman says, tell all your friends about me. Visit holybatcast.com. Follow us all over social media on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube. And then send any messages, thoughts, feedback to holybatcast@rf4rm.com. But that'll do it for this episode. Thanks for joining us. We'll see you next time. Same bat channel. And as Egghead says, I hope you have an excellent Easter. Bye, everybody.
Holy BatCast is brought to you by real fans for real movies. Remember, the thoughts and opinions shared by the participants are theirs and theirs alone, and do not represent the companies or organizations they happen to work for.
Today's top two stories come from Gotham City, where local newscaster Summer Gleason is standing by.
In a case that could herald a new era in cryogenic medicine, Nora Fries has been revived from her frozen state and has undergone a vital organ transplant. Nora Fries is the wife of the late Victor Fries, who was killed 2 weeks ago when an offshore drilling platform exploded and collapsed into the ocean. The transplant operation, funded by the Wayne Tech Corporation under the auspices of its CEO, Mr. Bruce Wayne, was today declared a resounding success by Dr. Lyle Johnston, chief surgeon at Gotham General Hospital. Mrs. Fries is reported to be resting in stable condition. Ironically, the cryogenic technology invented by Nora's husband, which tragically transformed him into the criminal Mr. Fries, was credited by Dr. Johnston as having saved her life. It's a shame Victor Fries will never know. In other news, Gotham's mysterious defender, the Batman, was seen last night helping police apprehend